while millions of people are screaming at their TVs, painting their faces, and feeling emotionally wrecked because 11 strangers lost a game. There's a massive group of people who just don't care at all. And according to neuroscience, their brains might actually be wired differently. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear might completely change how you see the sports obsessed people in your life. Here's what almost nobody says out loud. Not caring about sports doesn't make you boring. It doesn't mean you lack passion, and it definitely doesn't mean something is wrong with you. But there is something interesting happening in your brain, something that sets you apart from the majority of people who follow sports closely. So, let's start with the obvious question. Why do so many people care so much? Humans are tribal by nature. For most of our history, being part of a group meant survival. Your group protected you, fed you, kept you alive. And sports, they function like modern tribes, just with better branding. When someone watches their team, the brain releases oxytocin, the same bonding chemical tied to family and close relationships, which means on a neurological level, it can feel like those players are your people. Sounds strange, but it's real. Now, here's where it gets more interesting. People who don't feel drawn to sports often show weaker tribal instincts. Their identity isn't strongly tied to belonging to a group. They tend to be more individualistic, more self defined, more likely to think, I don't need to be part of something bigger to feel complete. Research backs this up. People with low interest in sports show less us versus them thinking, meaning they're less likely to dislike someone just because they're on a different side. But it goes deeper, because what happens in the brain of a sports fan during a game is more intense than most people realize. You know that feeling right before opening something exciting? That tension, that anticipation, that's dopamine. Now imagine that feeling repeating over and over again, every play, every possession, a constant cycle of anticipation and release. And here's the key: you don't know what's going to happen next. That uncertainty is exactly what keeps the brain hooked. In psychology, this is called intermittent reinforcement, one of the most powerful reward patterns we know, the same principle behind highly addictive systems. Your brain doesn't really care where the dopamine comes from, it just learns to want more. For people who don't care about sports, this system simply isn't triggered in the same way. Watching others compete doesn't activate the same reward response, and there's evidence this may be partly biological. Differences in how the brain responds to competition and reward can influence how much you care. There's also something called basking in reflected glory. When a team wins, fans say, "We won." But when they lose, it suddenly becomes, "They lost." That small shift matters. People who aren't into sports tend to do this far less. Their self-image isn't tied as strongly to external outcomes. Their sense of success is more stable, less dependent on things they can't control. Now, to be clear, this isn't about one being better than the other, but it is about understanding the difference, because here's something that sounds almost contradictory. Sports fans often show strong emotional engagement. They practice caring deeply, even about people they've never met. So, why doesn't that same intensity show up in non fans? It comes down to where empathy is directed. Everyone has a limited capacity for emotional investment. People who don't follow sports often channel that energy elsewhere, into relationships, ideas, creativity, or causes that feel more real to them. Research also suggests that people with low interest in sports tend to score higher in openness. They're more drawn to art, ideas, and new experiences. So, while one person finds excitement in a game, another finds it in music, nature, or building something meaningful. Different sources, same human need. And let's be honest for a second. For some people, not caring about sports isn't random. Maybe they felt excluded. Maybe they never connected with that culture. Or maybe they just never understood the appeal. Why would grown adults yell at a screen over a ball? If you've ever thought that, you're not alone. So, Why do these two groups sometimes struggle to understand each other? Because they experience meaning differently. Sports fans find meaning in narrative, the underdog story, the comeback, the rivalry. It's real-time drama with unpredictable outcomes. For others, that same randomness feels meaningless. They think, why invest emotionally in something I can't control? And they're not wrong, but neither are sports fans. This is really about two different ways of engaging with life, one through observation and shared identity, the other through direct involvement and personal relevance. Neither is superior. They're just different strategies for finding meaning. And here's something subtle, but important. People who don't follow sports often report feeling more present in their own lives. They're not spending hours emotionally invested in outcomes they can't influence. They're engaged in their own. And there's something quietly powerful about that. So, what does all of this mean? If you don't care about sports, you're not missing out on something essential. Your brain just prioritizes differently. Your sense of reward, identity, and meaning is wired in its own way. And that's completely okay. Next time someone asks, "Did you watch the game?" and you genuinely couldn't care less, just remember, you're not broken. You're not boring. You're just playing a different game, one that might, just maybe, have higher stakes. If this resonated with you, subscribe, leave a like, and tell me in the comments, what does capture your attention the way sports capture others?